Okay, webinar has started and we are live. Hello, everyone. Hopefully, should be jumping in. We've got 7 attendees so far. There was more in the waiting room, so they should be accepted and heading in now. Hello, everyone. Hope you're all good. What we're going to do is obviously, this is our AMA for the RWA platform launch. And we have Adrian Hogg here, head of Vlrm Markets, that is going to be explaining a lot more, a lot better than I can, on everything Vlrm Markets related. What we're going to do is wait a few minutes for everyone to pile in, because of course, people might be finishing work or doing whatever, clicking on the links, etc., to get in. So I'm going to wait for those. And then unfortunately, I've got a little bit of a boring disclaimer for everybody, which I need to read out, just so that we're all covered, of course, because this is not a market sensitive presentation. Everything in here is public knowledge. So, but still, that being said, we want to be professional at all times. So we're going to read that disclaimer out to everyone before we get started, and then we'll get into everything. We have a little presentation for you today, which Adrian will highlight upon, related to obviously Vlrm Markets and the news that has been out today. And thank you everyone for your questions throughout the day. I have been collating them, piling them up. There's been quite a few actually, and we'll try and get through as many as we can. And I'll explain a little bit more of that in a moment. So give it another minute or so. There's 25 in attendance at the moment, which is great to see. Thank you for everyone taking time out of your day to come and hang out with us for this AMA. It's really cool to see. We have a few more. I think there was around 40 or 50 or something in terms of participations that had been registered, and that's people who had pre-registered. There might be someone registering it as we speak. So like I said, I want to give them a little bit of time so we can get maximum number of people in, so people don't miss anything when it gets going. So we're at 28 now, so it's going up, and then we'll get things going. The actual AMA is being recorded, so if you can't stay for the whole thing, don't worry. We'll have it all for you later on, probably uploaded onto our YouTube channel so people can see and watch it. If you're in the Telegram group and you, for example, haven't got a chance, or if you're on our socials, so LinkedIn or X, if you're not, please follow, etc. So we want to build those platforms up, especially with the news, obviously, of the RWA marketplace going live. That's going to be a big part of our marketing strategy, at least, getting more and more eyes on Vlrm Markets. So 29 participants now. So I think we're going to kick off because it seemed to have settled down and slowed down. I can see lots of people coming in. Right. Okay. So first and foremost, the disclaimer. Again, sorry, I'm going to read it out. I'll try and be as quick and painless as I can. But here we go. So this presentation is intended solely for information purposes and is not an offer or solicitation to buy or sell securities. Vlrm PLC and its representatives are not providing and do not offer investment, legal, or tax advice. Investors should consult with their own advisors before making any investment decisions. Past performance is not indicative of future results. The value of investments can fluctuate and may result in losses. Investing in securities involve risk, including potential loss of principal. Vlrm PLC does not guarantee the accuracy or completeness of any information provided in this presentation. The information contained herein may include forward-looking statements, which are subject to risks and uncertainties. Actual results may differ materially from those expressed or implied in such statements. Vlrm PLC understands no obligation to update or revise any forward-thinking statements, whether as a result of new information, future events, or otherwise. Investors should conduct their own due diligence and carefully consider their investment objectives, risk tolerance, and financial situation before investing. Any reliance on the information provided in this presentation is at the investor's own risk. By accessing this presentation, investors acknowledge that they have read, understood, and agree to the bound and to be bound by this disclaimer. They further acknowledge that they are responsible for compliance with any applicable laws and regulations in their jurisdiction. And just another note, as we hit 30 attendees, welcome all, that this presentation is strictly for purposes of real-world assets and associated with Vlrm Markets as a licensed and regulated digital asset service provider in El Salvador. So on that, I just want to make a point that obviously all the questions we had in today, again, thank you very much for taking the time to bring those in. Some of them may not be appropriate for the AMA in question, as it is a real-world asset AMA, i.e. it is all about Vlrm Markets and the news today that Adrian's been working really hard and the team been working really hard on within El Salvador in terms of our license entity there. So if they are straying into anything else in the wider Vlrm vision or within our ecosystem generally, then please go through the regular channels in terms of for investors and for people interested in finding out more information on Vlrm. And then we'll kind of get back to you in normal due course when appropriate. So if you don't get your question answered today because it was based on that, then please don't be disheartened. It's just, part and parcel. We have to be careful, obviously, when it comes to these things, hence all the long disclaimer. We want to make sure that everything that is said today is within the realms of RWA and within the realms of Vlrm Markets. So with that, let us begin. Let me introduce you to Adrian. So Adrian and I have worked together for a number of years. He is the head of Vlrm Markets and has been championing this entire initiative pretty much since the inception, if I'm correct, Adrian. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have Adrian talk us through some various aspects, kind of a mini presentation for you guys related to Vlrm Markets and the news some of you may have read today, or hopefully all of you have read today. So first and foremost, the unique selling points for Vlrm Markets. Adrian, can you tell us a little bit about what makes Vlrm Markets kind of special?
Sure. Thank you, DC. And I'd like to say regarding the business Vlrm Markets, we've obviously done a tremendous amount of work to get to this point. We're really excited to start the journey tomorrow to get the business open and then start building the business going forward into the future. And we'll be using these USPs in order to do that. So if we talk through them briefly, I can give a brief overview of each. Look, we're licensed, regulated, and permissioned. That's obviously a key important aspect for our business. We're approved by CNAD for digital assets, CNAD in El Salvador, and also the SSF, which is the traditional regulator for Bitcoin services. So we have full permissions that we need to do our business. There are very high barriers to entry actually to get those permissions. When we were at the event in El Salvador at the end of April, the start of May, the Digital Assets Summit, CNAD confirmed in one of their addresses that only 16%, get permissions of those applicants. So they're really robust in terms of who they permit to do the business. So we're obviously very honoured to be in that group. And it is a barrier to entry, and that is a real advantage to us, which we can come on into in a moment. In terms of the investment process, now digital asset business in El Salvador has a distinct advantage on traditional business. They refer to it as securitization in local law, and we use digital assets. And it means that our investment process, the capital raising, is streamlined. So in a traditional securitization approach, people need to literally go to mark counters in offices, government buildings, and get stamps and wetting signatures in order to invest as a foreigner in a local business. And that doesn't apply for digital assets business. So we've got real streamlined process, very low cost in terms of, well, there's no cost from the digital asset aspect there are in securitization. So it's a real benefit that we have, and the government is really promoting that, and they really want inward investment into the country. So they've tailored the law in that way. So in terms of our market conditions, El Salvador is very secure now following the government's initiatives to clean up the country in terms of the problems that it had. It's very safe. I've been there 4 times now. It's rife for business development. There's a pent-up demand in the country for capital development, for real estate projects, hospitality projects, leisure projects, very large hotels, academies that are being built, accommodation for people returning to El Salvador and new entrants. There's a huge amount of development going on in El Salvador, and there's a very large capital need, and that's kind of where we come in as part of our business. In terms of our competition, which is always really important when you're operating in the marketplace, but it's a blue sky moment for us. There are many DASPs, lots of them do quite specific business. There are payment providers and payment channels and things like that. But there are 3 principal market providers at the moment in the marketplace that are active. There's a company called Mio Trez. They do real estate. There's a company called Nextbridge, and they do US Treasury bills. We're kind of on our own in the space. Bitfinex are there as well, but they've only done one deal, which they cancelled. And we're close to Bitfinex, and we talk to them a lot, and they're really happy to collaborate with us, but they're not really moving into the space as much as we are interested in. It's a blue sky moment for us. We've got the market to ourselves, and therefore we've got a lot of interest from lots of different counterparts, lots of people coming to us. We approach counterparts as well. So for us, it's really, really blue sky moment from an opportunity point of view. in terms of then the government and regulator, look, we've done, and DC and I in the past have done regulatory business in so many jurisdictions. We've done business in the Philippines, in Malaysia, in Singapore, in the US, in Europe, and in some jurisdictions in Africa, including Mauritius. And without a doubt, El Salvador at the moment is the best jurisdiction that we've dealt with in terms of government and regulatory alignment. And that's a key aspect when you're building a business, capital, a digital asset business. Often the government can promote and then the regulator is dragging their heels, or vice versa. And you only have to look at the US and see the way the Democrats and Trump's, the Republican changed there, and it changed completely the aspect of the business. So in El Salvador, we have government stability and we have regulatory stability. So it really gives us a platform to invest in our business and to the success of the company. So yeah, those things are really key, important points to us.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good foundation to understand why the jurisdiction, as you say, and what that means as a jumping off point for the future of Vlrm Markets as we take a big step today, obviously a bigger step tomorrow with the actual platform going live. And speaking of going live, that we have obviously the real world asset itself, what we're here for today, and we've kind of bucketed them into 4 different verticals. Could you give us a little bit more information on those verticals and the purpose of them?
Yeah, we have many permissions. So at a helicopter level, we have permission for primary issuance and secondary market via our bulletin board, and all asset classes. So we have digital assets that can be anything can be underlying it from the point of view of, in a TradFi sense, shares, debt, equity, funds, etc., or sports, royalties, real estate. So from our point of view, the law is completely agnostic. The digital asset is not a security. Specifically in law, and any underlying can be, even derivatives that we can have there. So we've got a very wide scope and spectrum of the business that we can onboard. We can also deal with fiat currencies, stable coins, cryptocurrency, utility tokens, as we know, the BTC. El Salvador is a BTC jurisdiction. It was brought into legal tender in 2021, and there's a lot of BTC in the economy, and it's a business line that is doing very well for the whole economy, and we can service all of it. That we're starting with sports, lifestyle. We're going to be moving into the other phases as we go throughout the year, and we've got some very strong pipeline which we can come to later actually in all of those areas.
Amazing. So talking about those products then, highlighting a little bit more, there's a strategic product mix that we have at Vlrm Markets, 2 defining kind of avenues. Can you give some more light on the 2 different paths and what they mean for Vlrm?
Yeah, we've kind of put it there as 2 buckets. It's revenue, what we refer to as revenue products, and publicity products. So we kind of need both. We're a new marketplace. We've obviously got to build traction. We've got to get customers on board, and that's where our publicity products come in. So some of the lifestyle ones that we're going with first, it generates interest. The counterparts that we're dealing with have their own socials, so they help us publicize our marketplace. It puts eyes on the business, which is always a good thing. And then the revenue products are those that bring us the revenue, which obviously we need from the lifeblood of the business and for our obligations to the company and to the shareholders. So, but we need both of those, and we're actually targeting both. So people may see when they go on the platform that actually some of the products are really quite small, but they're there for a reason, because it helps in the local market. It helps our exposure. It makes it interesting for us when we talk to people, to potential issuers. It makes it interesting for us in the press and interviews, etc. So we see both of them of equal value, although the revenue clearly is going more into the revenue products, and the publicity products is bringing eyes to the business. So you're going to see a real mix over the next few months as they come through. And I hope that will let people understand why we do these things, and it's for a reason. We're not doing anything by mistake. We know exactly what we're doing, and we will be doing publicity as well as revenue products, and we've got some real big revenue products on the horizon for sure.
That's the thing, and I'd also highlight that I've seen obviously there's a lot of work on the ground that yourself and the team in El Salvador have done towards building a strong foundation within El Salvador as our jurisdiction of choice, which is, I think, an important strategic step that, like you say, these publicity products are good for the jurisdiction and good for highlighting us within that area, as well as obviously the larger revenue products, etc.
Yeah, exactly. And El Salvador has a real thirst for capital projects that we discuss in the USPs. It had a period of time where people weren't investing in the jurisdiction. So there's a lot of demand for capital. And if you look at traditional marketplaces, you look at banks, for example, they're very risk adverse. They're very slow at providing capital. Businesses, sports, lifestyle, a lot of those find it very hard to get funding. and that's where we can come in and fill that void. There's a lot of very good business people in El Salvador that need capital. They can't get it through the traditional routes. There are diaspora moving back to El Salvador now. The troubles have passed, and there's some really clever, great people that come from the US and Canada, where they principally relocated over the many decades of troubles, and they're coming back now with skills and capital and building businesses, and lots of ideas and lots of inspiration they're bringing back from overseas. So the economy is really booming. Even over the year that I've been traveling there, you can see things changing all the time. And look, we're in the right place at the right time in terms of the business. And we can use this to showcase around the world what we're doing. So we're not just focused on El Salvador, of course. We are focused on the region, but we're actually focused globally. But all of these publicity as well, they really help us. They really help us open doors internationally. They put eyes on the business. So there's a real strategy there for these two product mix to make it work. Obviously, we've got to pay the bills, right? So we need the revenue products, but we also want to build out the business and make it a real monster. So we need both in the product mix.
100%. And there's interesting pipeline coming, and I'm excited to see that coming in the future. Speaking of kind of culturally connected products, and the news that has just dropped. So if you haven't had a chance to read it yet, a huge congratulations to yourself, Adrian, because I know you've been working hard on this particular deal. And that is that Vlrm Markets is sponsoring the top team in El Salvador, known as FAS. Do you want to explain a little bit more for that?
We are absolutely delighted to have come to this arrangement with FAS. They are look, people from the UK probably don't really know them so much. I know that there's been some guessing on the Telegram group when I said that I was going to a match, and Carmen and I were going, and they were right actually. They were Graham. I know he was right, and people were right on the group. But look, this is a great team. They were founded in 1947 when the league in El Salvador was established. They've remained in that league. They've never been relegated. They've been in the league since 1947 all the way through. They've won it 19 times. They are the most successful football club in El Salvador. We haven't gone for a counterpart for an easy. We went for what we considered to be the top team in El Salvador. In local context, they're your Liverpool, Manchester United in El Salvador. Everybody knows who they are. They're in the second largest, most popular city in El Salvador, have a huge fan base, very loyal fans. People throughout El Salvador love FAS. Carmen is a FAS supporter. And for us, it was just the natural aspect. Look, we met with the owner, we spoke to them, we went to the match. We got on very well with them. They have huge aspirations, which we've set out in the release there, the reach release. We're tokenizing the football club. As far as I'm aware, that's going to be the first in the world. And obviously we hesitate to say that in case somebody pops up and says, well, no, we did something in somewhere else. But as far as I'm aware, it's going to be the first that tokenized and actually brought it to fruition. I know that others have tried and then withdrew. And we're also going to help them raise funding for their sports city that they intend, and we can obviously provide much more information on that. So we're going to be building a great relationship with them, and we're going to be going on their shirt. So you can see on the logo there, you can just see the edge of, I think it says Sport Inc. That's going to say Vlrm Markets with our V logo on their chest. We're absolutely delighted. I would imagine there's going to be quite a few new FAS fans in our ranks, and people
100%.
are going to be getting hold of those shirts and wearing them proudly. And look, we are really proud. It's a big statement from the market. It helps us actually open doors with other football clubs, and I'll come on to that in a moment. We are speaking to other football clubs in different countries. We've actually had a number that have approached us, and we're speaking to other sports teams. We're digging away there in the background, and signing FAS is a really good part of that. And from our point of view, and from the owner of the football club, he's actually just the new owner in January. He wants to innovate. He's interested in digital business. For us, it was perfect timing, and we're absolutely delighted. It's really helps boost the business and helps show everybody what our intentions are. We want to build a really successful, strong business, and this just shows everybody that what our ambitions are, and this is the start. This is the start of part of what we're going to be building.
No, it's a huge milestone. It's absolutely huge, and I can't wait to, like you say, get myself a FAS jersey with our logo on it. So we spoke of products. Off products, we now go into obviously people buying those products, and that's the buy side, which is a bit of a it's one of the more challenging aspects within the tokenization
Yeah.
space. But if you want to kind of explain a little bit more of our position on that, and then we can move on from there.
Yeah, I've got a few listed here. There are many others actually. Peter's working on a whole bunch of other buy side aspects that we've got with they're considering with other not market makers, asset managers, and all counterparts that he's building. But these are some of the core ones that Carmen and I have been working on our side. Look, there's a regional economic boom in El Salvador. People are investing in it. We've got one of our counterparts, in fact, two of them, very large real estate deals. The buy side is coming from the US. They really want to go into the US market, into the El Salvador market. They see massive opportunity there, and it's the easy way in. And I refer to one of the USPs with digital business. It's frictionless to buy. You don't have to go through the whole government process to be registered in order to buy and become a shareholder in an El Salvador company. You can do it by digitalization. There's a real thirst for investing in El Salvador. People can see the profit, and we're kind of sitting right there in the right place to provide that service for foreign people to invest. So there is a regional economic boom, and we're part of that. The diaspora that I referred to as well, there's a lot of Salvadorians that moved away over a number of decades that are now coming back. They're coming back with wealth. They are buying apartments are actually really expensive, given the jurisdiction and where it's come from. We're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for these very premium apartments. You've got penthouses selling for $1 million. So there's a lot there, and people that are coming to El Salvador from the diaspora from US and Canada are looking for accommodation that they're used to. They want to live in things that they've been used to in Canada, US. So there's a huge boost in the economy of that, and that's actually one of Bukele's measures. He said, if we have done a good job, people will come home, and actually they're seeing that, and that's where one of the aspects of the business that we're looking into, and actually with real estate is one of those, because the real estate developers are developing these real estate opportunities for people to buy for the diaspora. Then there's a foreign community. There are more and more foreigners moving there. There's a Bitcoin community that are moving there. So the Bitcoiners have a lot of wealth, as we know. Bitcoin obviously is doing very well. 10 Bitcoins, is $1 million. So for those guys, they've got a lot to invest in, and actually RWA helps them diversify their portfolio. Some of the guys that we're speaking to that have bought assets in El Salvador, exactly that. They're looking for RWA, and we've got all kinds of opportunities throughout the whole of Vlrm group, actually, to look at how we can connect those counterparts with crypto, with digital assets, Bitcoin and such like, into RWA to get them into the real world market. So there's those aspects as well. But profile lift, we refer to those publicity products. FAS obviously is really important for us in the local market. Everybody knows who that club is. It really helps us build our profile, really shows how strong we are in that market, and it's one aspect of bringing buyers into our marketplace. And then obviously the global digital community that I refer to. So we're acutely aware that buy side is important, and actually we work on buy side so hard that people are going to see that a lot of products come to market, they're fully funded, they're sold already. And for me, that's a perfect product. Maybe for some people, they'd like to go in and buy some of these tokens, but honestly, for running the business, when we look at the revenue side, the very large real estate deals that we're looking at, they're several $100 million deals, and we are fully funded when we go to market. We're not going to be, and that obviously then but straight on the bottom line from a revenue point of view. So yeah, we're acutely aware of buy side. We actually think we're in a very privileged position, in a unique kind of jurisdiction that has this thirst for capital, and then a thirst for people to invest in it. Obviously it's not just El Salvador. El Salvador is part of the business. It's naturally we start there, and then we build and build and build. We've got counterparts that we're speaking to throughout Central America. So in Panama, in fact, we've got instruction from a Panama issuer, which will be coming soon to our platform. Costa Rica, Guatemala, up into the US as well. We've got instruction from a Paraguayan investment house, restructured products down there. We're speaking to people about products in Europe and in the Middle East and Australia. For example, we're looking at EV products in solar harvesting in the Middle East, Australia, real estate in other jurisdictions as well. So we're really doing a global spread, but we start in El Salvador. That's our genesis. That's our hunting ground. That's our test case. That's where we're going to be building all our new products on market, and then we grow and grow and grow as a global business. From El Salvador's point of view, it's completely agnostic The product can be anywhere in the world, so we can admit a product from wherever, from Europe or Asia or etc. And they can then do that business then from, we can raise it on our platform. However, actually most counterparts are looking at structuring in El Salvador, and that structured company, the SPV, they invest in the underlying, be it in wherever it might be it in Central America or in Asia or Europe or anywhere else. So actually we're finding that a lot of these, or actually the majority of them, are looking to structure in El Salvador. The law is known, the digital asset regulations are all in place. And so, yeah, we're doing a lot of business. All of these people we've mentioned, all of them are going to be structuring in El Salvador, which for us is very efficient and very good for us to get products on market. So we're really,
Amazing.
really, really excited about it.
You've answered a lot of probably my questions off my AMA list already, but let's go into the AMA. Don't forget, you can ask questions here in the Zoom. There's a question and answer section, such as Golden God has just put in, which is an interesting name. I hope that's an Always Sunny reference. When does this presentation end and the AMA begin? Well, it has begun. The AMA is now live, so get your questions in if you have any at the moment. I have many here that have come from the community, elsewhere, emailed in, etc. So I'm just going to, I guess, fire them off to you, Ado, and we can go from there. So first of all, let's kick it off. Vlrm has had a lot of background work ready to launch the RWA marketplace. Have you, or do you believe you've covered, I guess, a lot of the key elements when it comes to going live with a RWA platform?
Yes. Okay, now I'll give a bit more. Yes, of course. Look, we're licensed and regulated. And I referred earlier to CNAD, the regulator in El Salvador, and actually the traditional regulators, or the SSF. We had to be approved. We had to show them how we do our business. We had to show them our procedures, policies, procedures framework, our governance framework, our business plan, and all the aspects that you expect, policies, etc., but also the technology. So they had to dig down into the technology, and they had to ensure that they were comfortable with the technology that we're using, that it was fit for purpose, and that it was appropriate for the marketplace. So yes, that addresses all those aspects. The customer security is foremost in all digital asset businesses, and it's foremost in ours. Customer asset security, AML, of course, is absolutely key for the business. We must ensure that we follow all AML and criminal terrorist financing rules and regulations to prohibit that being used in our network. And then, of course, all of the recovery aspects of the business that we have to make sure we do. So the short answer is yes, but the longer answer is, look, there was a long process, and we went through it, and we have got everything that we need to start the business, and we get it started, and then we build. And now this is the first step. Tomorrow when we launch, and we build and we build and we build, and we'll see it keep changing as well. We'll see enhancements to the way that we do our work, and what you see on day one isn't going to be what you'll see necessarily at the end of the first year or second year or third year. We're going to keep always in striving to improve the business and always looking at that. But the core principle is we have to adhere to those regulatory. So yeah, we do all of that.
100%. And also just for yourself is that you have an extensive background in that world, in that environment.
Yes.
That is what you used to do for a living. You used to run businesses with that as his core business line. So it's very much in safe hands, I would say. The next question, I love the way this is written. Now we have the bones, regulatory approval and tech build in place. When can we expect to see the first meat, live RWAs to hit the market?
Okay, so this is actually a really important one that we all appreciate, is that turning on the business, it's not like turning on a tap. So you don't just turn the handle and out comes the water. Actually, it's very hard. The first getting to open is really a hard process. There's a lot to be done. And as we say, and we've been doing a lot of work in the background, and it's true, we have.
Always, right? Always the way.
And look, I get to the pleasure to explain these things, but there's a lot of people in this process, as you know, DC, a lot of unsung heroes. We've got the technology guys, we've got the finance guys, we've got our compliance people, we've got the board process. There's a lot going on just to get to the start line, but it's not a tap. We don't just switch it on and suddenly they all pour out. We have a regulatory process to go with all the issuances. So I would be measuring this in weeks and months if you want to look at success. I know that people like to see what's happening. We've got a new one today, tomorrow. Really, I think people have got to look at the horizon and say that actually we're building a business here and we're going to be building a whole bunch of issuers. Look, how many issuers we want by the end of the year? Short answer is a lot. How many will that be? Well, that will be multiple issuances, but they're not coming every day. We'll see some coming in June, then some more in July and August, September, and they'll just keep coming. In the first few days, I would imagine that might be a little bit frustrating for counterparts because they say, well, where are they all? But when you look back after a few months, you'll see that there's going to be many issuers. There's going to be lots of news coming. This is a really exciting space, and we're going to see over the next few weeks and months really changing horizon for the business, and lots of issuers and success stories in the pipeline. But it's not a tap.
No, exactly.
It doesn't come on tomorrow and then suddenly it does take time. So that's a great question, actually, because it helps explain.
No, it is good. I love the way it was framed, but you're right, and it's all about, I guess, the growth and exposure of the business. The business has begun, the doors are open, and we need to attract more and more people as they come in, and that will come through partnerships and collaborations. For example, think of every single fast supporter that is now going to be connected with our marketplace. Now, that is a very large group of people. They're not going to come day one, but they will build and grow as more eyes are seen onto the platform and more people understand, obviously, the tokenization market as well. So it's an interesting one, and I would also like to add that the amount of work that goes into even just one of these products that gets listed in terms of, for example, FAS, as you can imagine, it's months and months of negotiations, discussions, and building frameworks, maps, roadmaps, and everything to what their business lines are going to do, what they're going to do with it as well. So,
and obviously we've been doing that. So we're not that pipeline we've been building for months. Anyway, so they're all coming through now. They're at various stages in the pipeline, but they're all kind of coming through. And what we want to do is to have a regular flow. So it's interesting for people. And ideally, I'd like one coming, one through every week, but that's going to be really hard to achieve.
Yes.
Every month, I'd be looking for at least 2 a month, for example, to give some expectation. It could be more. As soon as we get more, the more we get, the more we can. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. We've got to look at this as a horizon over several months. The more that we can get, we will. But there's a lot of work. But again, that's to our advantage. This is a barrier to entry. I mentioned about the blue sky moment here. People are coming into this market. It's not easy. It's really not easy to do this marketplace. You need a lot of skilled people. We have a lot of skilled people in our organization, with many varied skills and a lot of experience, in all aspects of the business, and that's really hard to replicate. We're really well placed here to build out a really great business. That was Graham. Thank you for that question, Graham. Good question.
Yeah, that's a good question. And there's a follow-on. It's probably very similar. Looking forward, what sort of RWA go live cadence can we expect from now to year end? I think you've already answered that because you've mentioned a strong pipeline in the past. So
and we're looking for some real big ones as well. So we're working some big real estate deals, and we're hoping in the next few weeks that we can close those off. And when we do that, we're going to be announced as soon as we can. We're going to announce.
Of course, and
that's part of it. So we're going to keep announcing to the market. Coming soon, because obviously we want to build, and for the issuers as well, they want to announce because they want us to help start building the buy side, and we've got to see what we can do to help them. So as soon as we've got them, I can assure you we're going to start building that information and putting it out into the market.
Yeah, we're the first ones that want to tell everybody, right? Scream from the rooftops.
We're not going to hold back. We really want to tell.
Exactly.
There are people saying, we really want to give that news to the market, and as soon as we can, we're going to keep publishing as many as we can.
Yeah. Taking a slight diversion, but within the framework of Vlrm Markets, a lot of people might have seen the news that Carmen went up to see the SEC, and someone obviously therefore has asked a question related to that. So will Vlrm remain involved in the SEC tokenization sandbox?
Yeah, we really hope so. So I think some background is needed in context of that.
Yeah.
So there's a law firm in the US very interested in this space. They contacted the SEC. And they said, look, we should do this. And they had very close to El Salvador. They spoke to the regulatory authority and they said, look, we should do this and speak to the SEC and to see how we can collaborate. We know that El Salvador and the US have actually collaborated on other things, and I'm not going to get into the politics of that. But from the point of view of the business aspect, there is there's an opportunity for us to have close relations from an El Salvador point of view with the US. And there was a group of people put together, and Carmen was asked to join that, and we were really proud. Carmen did a fantastic job there, and people may or may not know that I ran a project that we did previously in the GSX group with the SEC and FINRA, that actually ran for a long time, and it was kind of it was destroyed by FTX, the listed company in the US. They lost appetite when FTX blew up, and they said, look, this is not the time. And the new government change that we had in the US, the change in January, really changed that focus. And the new chairman of the SEC came in on I think it was Monday, the 21st of April. Carmen was in with the team on Tuesday, the 22nd of April. And then we were chatting to all those guys when we were in El Salvador at the end of April for the Digital Assets Summit. And so, look, will we be involved? We really hope so. If they are going to ask somebody to help with this, with a sandbox, we hope it's going to be us. And I'll refer you back to that blue sky. We've got the most experience. We've got the most appetite. Carmen is a really quality person, and people are just getting to know her. And she has a tremendous amount of experience, regulatory experience. She was with the traditional regulator prior to CNET. Now, of course, she's now on the commercial side, and the regulator respects her, and she's a great for our business in terms of going to representing us for the SEC. But do we hope so? Yes, and if we can, we will. I can assure you that is absolutely something we want to do. It's regionally relevant. The US, of course, is a huge market. Look, we've been looking at all kinds of different objectives, and I don't want to give all the regs, but there's all kinds of reg something that we can look to deal with for digital assets. We know the SEC is speaking to BlackRock and others. We know they're interested. In fact, the chairman of the SEC came out when they were appointed and inaugurated by, I think it was on the 21st of April. And he said one of our principal objectives is digital assets and digital business, and they're looking to provide funding for companies in America. So we just think it's a sweet spot that we're really hoping will develop. And absolutely, yes, we want to be part of that.
It's just being in the room with SEC is so exciting. It's that big, right? The fact
really,
that we managed to get there.
They're really clever guys, right? So we did a lot of work before Carmen went in there, and you've got to be really on your game when you go and see those guys. It was a real honor, and Carmen did an absolutely fantastic job, and it was all confirmed by all the people, the regulators. So yeah, good job.
Amazing. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about token products again. So the firm token, will it be traded by retail? If so, where and how?
Okay, so the firm token, our first token, so Jamie's book, which we love, Symbolic. It's a great start. It's from us, comes from us, our first token. So it's a great honor for us that Jamie agreed to do that. So we're tokenizing his royalties. Hey, look, people see it tomorrow when we go live. It's a very small token issuance, but from our point of view, this is about going live. This is anybody that's gone live with any exchange or technology business and technology platform. And I have spoken to people in the community that have, and look, everyone appreciate how hard it is. And when you go live with your first product, you want to make sure that you've got a very friendly counterpart to do it with. And Jamie is obviously very friendly in regards to the company, of course, from his role in the business and his interest in the company. And so it was a very safe and very good one for us to go live with and run through the entire process, through the regulator, through the certifier, through the drafting of the prospectus, through all of the relevant aspects. So there was a lot of learning done, and we're really proud that Jamie's is the first one to go live on this platform, and we're really looking forward to people seeing it tomorrow, and hopefully they'll appreciate the kind of work that goes into the background, and also then the opportunity that we can do for other aspects as well. So yeah, we're really happy for that to be the first one.
Amazing. Will tokens on the Vlrm marketplace? You missed the retail part.
So the retail part.
Yes.
Look, our permissions are retail permitted, yes, and non-retail any aspect. That's all fully permitted as per the law in El Salvador, and this product is permitted for retail. However, that doesn't provide a carte blanche for anywhere in the world, that we can't then go into selling retail products to retail people anywhere in the world. So there are going to be restrictions on who is able to buy products. So people need to bear that in mind. They're not all necessarily going to be qualified for all products, and they may not be qualified. We may have to have people in the UK, for example. We might be waiting for UK focused products. We have got UK products actually on the horizon, which is the good news. So it won't necessarily be available for everybody. That we can't change the law, but we are, what we can do is build a business. But from an El Salvador point of view, when we look at the likes of FAS, it's completely retail. So any retail counterpart, once it's been approved by the regulator for issuance into the marketplace, it's fully able to be bought and sold and traded by any counterpart in retail all the way through to institution. And it's obviously really powerful for us as a business that we can do that.
Yeah, hugely. So related to that, then let's talk about that token itself. Will tokens on the Vlrm marketplace be tradable with such pairs as ETH, BTC, Doge, etc.?
They can be in the previous one of the previous slides we said about any stablecoin, cryptocurrency, etc. They can be. So that's up for us to set, meaning the team with the issuer, and we advise with permission to structure. So we're allowed to do that as per our permissions. And we speak to the counterparts and we might advise them. Look, bottom line is the majority I would anticipate are going to go on stable coins, not on BTC, for example.
Yeah.
People can use BTC for subscriptions, ETH for subscriptions, so long as the counterparts accept them. And in fact, they can actually use fiat currency as well. But I'll come to that in a moment. But the vast majority are going USDT. And USDT, Tether is based in El Salvador. They moved there from the BVI recently, actually this year, lock, stock and barrel. They're building Tether towers in El Salvador. They're putting a massive amount of digital asset investment into El Salvador. El Salvador is really growing in that sector. So look, it's the natural token that we lean towards. So we're a USDT kind of business from that regard. So I would expect people to see the majority of what we do will be stable and it will be USDT. But on the fiat currency side, actually, there's a key part that people need to understand because it's really important. And when people sit back and think about this from an institution point of view, now we look at our US institutions, for example, that are looking to invest in real estate, for example. Now, if we are permitted, the way that our technology operates, it's not DVP, it's not delivery versus payment. So actually they can pay in fiat currency and then we can issue the token, the digital representation of that currency, and then they can actually be redeemed in fiat currency as well. Now that really matters. We're not evangelists here. We're building a business, and the business has to be built in the way that we can make it successful. And if a counterpart will come in fiat currency, all good and well, we will issue them their digital tokens, and it will then function in the normal all the benefits that we have for digitalization. So the whole life cycle, for example, distributions, redemptions, transferability, fractionalization, all those good things. But the entry point doesn't have to be a stable coin. So we're not going to force a US institution to change 10 million bucks or 100 million bucks into USDT with all those problems, which I'm sure you can appreciate, with a compliance department that looks in a bank and they said, we don't want to do this. We can say, don't worry, you can do it in fiat currency. And so that's a really good aspect. And as far as El Salvador is concerned, with permission for that, we can do that. And it actually will really help boost the business. We are very flexible, very business friendly in the way that we can do our business. So it actually is all in the above is how we can structure. Any currency, any crypto, any stable, complete flexibility. We went for full permissions and we got it. And so we're going to use all those tools to run the business well, and make it profitable and successful, etc.
Okay, brilliant. So touching on that, when you mentioned that, I guess the issuer decides what they want to take in terms of digital assets and fiat currency, etc. Someone's asked, what is the process to commercialize these deals from inception to get into the marketplace? I know we touched on elements of that earlier on with the fast deal and everything else, but if you could probably give a little bit of highlights on that, that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, in high level, obviously we've got to discuss and reach out to the client. We do have our partner and ambassador network, so the partners refer a lot of business to us. So they help us with our distribution, our sales side. Carmen and I are very good at sell side distribution, and you saw the side on the buy side. The sell side is generally the easier side, generally, but not all of them. Prestige ones are quite difficult, need a lot of care, a lot of time. But for a lot of counterparts, the sell side is more of the easier, the path of least resistance in, because people were raising capital for them. So once we've gone through the process of explaining how the business works and then gone through the process of negotiating how we would deal with it, terms, discussing structuring, then we draft the prospectus. The prospectus actually we can do really fast. Within 5 business days, it's all completely drafted and they then will comment upon it. Then it goes to certifier, then it goes to market. So there's actually quite a long lead time. And we've got many prospectuses drafted already. And many prospectuses out there with counterparts running through the process. So there's a whole bunch of a lead time needed in all these projects. So yeah, and that's part of our job, obviously, to make sure we do that.
Nice and simple one, straight to the point. Are we looking at any other jurisdictions?
Not today. I mean, the US, yes. Do we have aspirations for other jurisdictions? The answer is yes.
Yeah,
absolutely yes. But we have to get this business open. We have to get revenue on the board. We have to start showing that we can build the success into the company before we run off and open somewhere else. Look, if an opportunity presents itself, we will, of course. If it's needed for structuring, of course. But do we have aspirations globally? I mean, the short answer is yes, but that's going to take a little bit of time.
Yeah, of course. Okay, moving on. So what is the strategic significance of El Salvador for Vlrm Markets? I guess you covered that a little bit earlier on.
I mean, the key part really is the government and regulator alignment, and the fact that it's a jurisdiction that's growing and there's a lot of inward investment and a lot of demand for capital. So for us, it's the perfect scenario for launching a digital asset capital market in a marketplace that has lots of demand for capital, lots of people that want to invest, in a blue sky where we're kind of sitting alone with all these different opportunities. Yeah, it's really we chose really well. There was a lot of time and effort put in for the team to discuss jurisdictions. As you know, DC, we've dealt with lots of different places, and I can hand on heart say that El Salvador is just the right place at the right time. It's a great place to do business for us.
Brilliant. And again, touch on it a little bit more, but perhaps you can go in maybe more on the technical side of things. But what kind of tokens do you issue? So what are we issuing?
Okay, so we use Tokeny platform as a white label, and we issue ERC 3643. And I imagine that not so many people will know what that is. But you have an ERC 20 token, for example, and people may or may not know what that is. What it means is with an ERC 3643 is that the compliance is built into the token. With an ERC 20, the compliance is built around the framework. So you have to have operational procedures for compliance on an ERC 20 token, which is your normal token like ETH, Gate token, they're ERC 20. So in a marketplace, the process and the compliance aspect and the control is via the processes that you surround it, which is actually really quite difficult. And there's a lot of potential points of failure, especially for a capital market. And so we use 3643 because the compliance is built and the control is built into the token. And that means, for example, we can freeze tokens, we can burn tokens, we can recall tokens, we can recover tokens. Now, the question is, why would we want to do that? Well, there are many reasons why we might need to recover a token. People lose access to their wallets. And what we don't want to do is have anybody lose access to their wallets and lose their token, which would be the case with BTC, for example.
Yeah.
But that won't happen with our marketplace. If you lose access to your token, we are able to recall it, we're able to recover it, we're able to burn it and issue new tokens. But there are other instances that, for example, there's creditor disputes, there's disputes between counterparts that hold tokens, people die. There are many reasons why we might need to access a token. And we all know with BTC what those tokens could be lost. That's not on ours. So all of these aspects are really important to actually running a responsible capital market. And DTCC, who are the largest clearing organization in the world, and if you ever want to go to sleep, you can look at their financials, and I have, they have quadrillions of transactions. Quadrillions, it's a word I had to look up when I first saw it. So gosh, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
They're so gargantuan in terms of clearing, and they are looking at ERC 3643, and it is part of their roadmap. So look, we chose very carefully. We just didn't randomly go for a service provider and say, hey, let's go for those guys.
Yeah.
We've gone for it. And actually the SEC like that as well, because they like all that control. They want to know that if a sanctioned person is holding a token, that we can freeze that token. They want to know that if IU tells us that this person should freeze or recover or whatever, that we can do it. And we want to know that people won't lose their assets, right? Nobody wants to lose their assets. People work hard for their money. And when they invest in something, we want to make sure they keep it. So the token is actually really important, but it's like many things. We don't think about what's going on the telephone. That's not your job. But my job is to think about those tokens and to think about that aspect. We've got to make sure that we protect our customers, protect our market, protect the issuers. And so we do think about all these kind of things that are a little bit kind of boring, really, I suppose. I don't know.
Yeah.
But they're all but they're really important to us, right? It's a lot. The 3643 is what we use. People look it up. It's a great token.
Brilliant. So I guess jumping off that question into another one someone's asked, which is obviously you just mentioned the types of tokens. And I think this segues nicely is into how does Vlrm Markets earn income, I guess, utilizing those tokens. But if you can expand on, I guess, the different avenues that we could generate income.
Yeah, so a capital market. So we charge people to issue their tokens. That's our primary revenue stream from that aspect of the business. So, for example, if we do an issuance of I don't know, whatever the amount might be, we can charge on both sides, the sell side and the buy side, or either or. So, for example, we might charge 3% for the issuance of a token, 1.5 on the sell side, 1.5 on the buy side. Both counterparts pay something, and we get all of that revenue. We might have some commissions we have to pay away to referrers, ambassadors, partners, brokers, etc. So we use part of that for that aspect. But some of those commissions can be really quite small depending on the product. They might lean towards the issuer more than the buy side. So, for example, on a debt instrument, you generally see the buy side fee lower because they've got to figure out how much they get in return for their coupon and interest. And you might see the issuer is more heavily involved on that fee. But maybe more for an equity, you might see that the fee leans much more towards the buyer than it does the seller, and vice versa. So look, that's something we discuss in detail with each issuer, and we make sure we agree it with them. But it can range up to 5%, for example. We've got at the moment, those are our top fees that we have, but they can go higher. I mean, there's no real guidance on that, but that's how we make the majority of our money, especially in the primary issuance. But we also make market in secondary. So when people transfer tokens from one to the other, there's a fee that's paid, and we cover that fee. So that's the buy side, both buy side. You know, the counterparts can say, well, either sell side or buy side, but it's the peer-to-peer paying it. We also make money on distributions. So those distributions, for example, we pay an interest, a dividend, coupon. We get paid to do that. It's either deducted from at source, or the issuer pays us, and also in redemptions. So if we issue a debt instrument and it's redeemed after a year, for example, we get paid to do that redemption. So there's lots of different ways that we can make money. As the business grows, there'll be all kinds of new revenue streams that we can do as well, because we'll be able to get more on the admission, for example, when the market's bigger and people want to come to us. And as we know, people like Binance are making a lot of money on admissions. If you've got a healthy marketplace where people know that you've got a tapped in buy side and sell side, people pay handsomely for those. So that's future coming down the line. But right now, the principal revenue stream will be in that issuance. So yeah, we get paid on both sides, buy side, sell side, and we just clip away and we provide our service, and that's how we earn our money. So obviously, the bigger the deal, the bigger the money.
Bigger
So
the
those
deal,
really
bigger
big
the
ones,
money.
that for us is obviously, that's where the revenue products come in, you see. So for publicity products, we're not making so much money on those, but for the revenue products, the big projects, that's where we start to make more revenue.
Well, of course. Now, I guess speaking of revenues, and you did touch on this earlier during the presentation, you mentioned some of the jurisdictions, but I think it'd be good to dive deep a little bit into it. And someone has asked, so perfect opportunity, what geographic locations is Vlrm Markets actively pursuing for business development?
So right now, ground zero, day
Right now.
one is El Salvador.
Yeah.
But then we build. I think the next part then is Central America, because we've got a lot of good contacts in Mexico, in Costa Rica, Guatemala, and Panama, and the south as well, Paraguay and other counterparts that we're speaking to. But I think all of that region there is very interesting to us, and they're very interested in us helping them. And they actually see that El Salvador is a trailblazer, and El Salvador is leading the pack, and they're really trying to learn. And anybody that digs into CNAB, they'll see that the regulator is entering into all kinds of memorandums of understanding, teaching people how to do this and sharing them their approach. So El Salvador is really seen as a central hub in that region. I know most people won't be that familiar with that region, but they really are regional hubs, regional experts. So that's obviously a focus of ours. But clearly, we're interested in Europe. We are also very interested in Asia, and Middle East, Australia, throughout Africa is also an area that we look at as well. But we're also talking to other exchanges. This is not just us on our own, but part of marketplace building is collaborating with other venues. We've got some very good friends that we know, DC, we all collectively know in our company, and other exchanges in other parts of the world. We're speaking to them, of course, and we're going to be looking at co-listing products. So they list our products, we list their products. So it helps us build liquidity in the market, but also helps from our sell to the sell side issuers. We say, hey, look, you come to us, we can place it in Asia. You come to us, we can place it in Europe, etc., and vice versa. They say to the Asian guys, hey, you come to us, we can place it in Central America. So we're kind of looking to connect all those points. So look, ultimately, it's a global play but the initial ground zero is El Salvador, and then it kind of just works its way back through into Central America, South America, etc. Which is hence actually that point that people in the Telegram group may find that actually they're not able to subscribe for these products, and some people may get a little bit upset by that. but that's the reality of the business. It's reality of regulated markets. We call it a digital asset in El Salvador, but in the United Kingdom, for example, they might refer to it as a security. And if you look at all UK rules, they've got very good guidance on that. So yes, but El Salvador is where it starts, ground zero. That's our home. That's where we're going to be building the business to start with.
Amazing. So we've got about 5 minutes left, guys. What I'm going to do is just say, if you have any questions live right now in the Zoom, there is the question and answer box. Put them in there. I've read a few off there, but I'm also reading, obviously, off my pre-issued ones that people came in with earlier today. So if you have, now's your chance. Otherwise, forever hold your peace until the next AMA, when we can wrangle Ado away from his busy day today to do this. And I want to throw two questions in together, because they're very similar from two different people. One of them is quite a nice one. It's for someone who's new to the space, and they talked about, can I tokenize my family home, which I quite like the idea of. Maybe it's something you do in the future. So maybe there's something you could answer on that one. Can you give any kind of relation? Would you see that kind of product in the future? Can you see tokenized
I
homes?
think, yeah, I mean, that's really ultimately this is a structuring question. So when we
Yes.
structure an underlying asset, we have to secure it. So we have to make sure that when people are buying a token, that they get rights to the underlying. And so to secure an asset, for example, real estate is a great example, because people do real estate globally. And we know that in many jurisdictions, the tokenization of real estate, and it's kind of the charge where it leads to charge in terms of tokenization. And it's because we know we have the title, we have a title deed, we have a register on a register of land, for example. And we can say, yes, we own that. And a company, normally it would do it, a special purpose vehicle, as we refer to, a company will hold that underlying asset, and then the company will be the issuer. So I might incorporate a company in El Salvador. That company would then take legal title of the property. It would issue tokens to the owner. So for example, the owner might get, if it's worth $1 million, they get 1 million tokens, and then they can issue those into the market for people to buy into the property. And we are actually, there are some guys in Panama that are looking at US for exactly that model. So they were looking at different states in the US where people can buy assets now, tokenize them, and then in the future, if they want to buy a unit for $250,000, for example, but they've decided they want to take some capital out, or they've decided they want to get some money out, but they don't want to necessarily sell the whole asset, they can sell $50,000 worth, for example, sell 20% of the value, get some money on the table. So it's actually a good question. It's quite difficult, and it has to be scalable to make sure that we can do it. But can we do it? The short answer is yes. Can somebody do it to their family home? I think the short answer is no.
Yeah.
If I'm totally honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, in theory we could, but I think the answer is no.
And if you're under 18, please ask your parents' permission before you tokenize the home
Yeah,
or underneath them. Related to that, the other question that someone has asked, but I thought they would fit quite well. It's probably quite one good, nice one to end on. It's a larger question, but for someone new to the space, what is real world asset and why does it matter?
Okay, so RWA means anything that underlies the token in effect. It could be tangible or intangible, meaning a real thing, or an intangible thing like a royalty, like for example, Jamie's book, the rights to the royalties. So it can be a building, a share in a company, a share in a fund, a debt instrument, as well as royalties, as well as sponsoring a sports star, or all in the above. So it's all of those assets wrapped in, generally everything that's not public markets kind of thing.
Brilliant.
So, yeah,
But why does it matter? Why are we here?
because there's no liquidity in that space. And the tokenization is the better way to do it than the way we do it today. So people can use their assets to raise money. They can raise it via tokenization. They can fractionalize. Actually, in the example is if you've got a business, a private company, you could tokenize that private company, and you could allow new investors to come in. For example, your staff. You could be retiring, you could be selling it, so you could sell down and keep part of it. Of course, you can do that in current business. Of course, you can. But with tokenization, you open yourself up to a much larger marketplace. If you have a company in the UK, for example, subject to all regulatory, etc. But if you were to tokenize that, then you're accessing a much wider market than you can currently in your current TradFi. So you can do it, of course. It's not a solution that's not out there, but we just do it better, and we do it a lot better. The efficiencies are there. I think you're going to see this throughout all areas of business, especially in companies, private companies, where people can actually bring their staff in, and with a recall function, so people can be issued tokens, i.e. shares in the company that, for example, give them benefits to dividend flows or profit shares, or or revenue, whatever it might be. Like look at the John Lewis model kind of thing with the partner model. But you can do it with a token, so people can be given those tokens, and when they leave the organization, maybe the rights to the token has ended after a vesting period, and we can recall those tokens with our technology. So all those things are really easy. Currently, that's really hard to go on a members register and all those things. So look, it's really, really much better way to do business. And we have a marketplace to help people raise money, so it's so much better than the current system, and it will all move in that direction. They're absolutely right, the commentators that say it. And look, hey, we're going to be part of that, and who knows, we might be the biggest.
No, 100%. It's a great way to end that AMA. Thank you very much, Adrian, for your time. And congratulations again, obviously, on the launch of Vlrm Markets. Don't forget, everybody tuned in and watching later on. You may have been watching this after you've actually seen the website, but we have our new website, Vlrm.markets, going live tomorrow, along with the platform itself, which you'll be able to access. And yeah, hope you've all enjoyed the news. And if you are interested in probably getting a fast jersey, we will organize that in the Telegram community, etc., when the time comes appropriate. Thank you again, Adrian, and thank you for everyone taking the time out of your day, wherever you are in the world, whatever time it may be, to ask the questions and find out more about what we're doing here. Vlrm is genuinely appreciated. Brilliant. So thank you, everybody, and we will see you very, very soon.